Okay, so first we have to talk about chromosomes. So again, we're talking about differences between the biological sexes. So what are the chromosomes? Well, chromosomes, simply put, they're a package of DNA and proteins. So again, all the DNA in your cells are not just randomly organized in one big string. There are actually 46 different strings, and here we show them in the condensed form. When your cell isn't actively dividing this, these are actually much unraveled, but the thing is that this is when you're actually trying to compact them and make it so that they're easily transported around the cell. So these are chromosomes, and how many are there? Well, you see, this is what you call a karyotype. When you look at all the condensed chromosomes when they're packaged like this and count how many of each chromosomes there are. What you notice is that as you go from 1 to 22, they get from long to short. And there's also these X and Y. What we have here is an X and Y chromosome. So what determines sex? Well, one pair of sex chromosomes are the primary determinant, so they're the main factor in determining what an individual's sex is. So here we have XY, and if there's a Y chromosome, that's the primary determinant of whether a person is a male. So that's what we have here. And sometimes they're called allosomes, but often they're called just sex chromosomes. And if this is a male karyotype, but if a karyotype is just that collection of chromosomes, but if there was a female individual, you would actually have two X's. Now, then you have 22 pairs of what we call autosomes. They do help in sex differentiation, but the X and the sex chromosomes, those are the primary determinants of sex. So again, we're talking about biological sex. Okay, that's what we're looking at here. So what are those chromosomes? Well, here we have our double helix and DNA. So again, the chromosome is not just DNA. It does contain a length of DNA. So what you also have here are proteins called histones. There are multiple types of histones, but at this level, just know that histones are proteins. And what do you see is that you see the DNA is wrapping around these histones. So these histones are like spools that you wrap a thread around, and this is what helps to compact DNA. And as you coil the DNA around the histones, actually coil these DNA histone complexes over and over and over again, then you eventually have this tangled, solid, or more solid mess, or not mass called a supercoiled region, and this is what forms a condensed chromosome. So again, your chromosomes, when they're unraveled, they kind of look more like this, but as you're getting ready for a cell to divide, they start compacting like this. Because why? Again, it's easier to transport a rope that's wrapped around a spool than it is to transport a big unraveled rope that's loosened by itself. Now what we have here, so this thing is that what if you have the DNA with the genes that determine male sex? Well, if this is these genes, remember genes are like instructions for making proteins and RNA. So the thing about this, if you have the proteins that influence a developing embryo to become male, this is where you would have the genes. And what you're going to do is package it into a chromosome. And the chromosome that contains the genes for male sex determination is the Y chromosome. Now, males and females. So females and males, we both have at least one X chromosome. But females have two X chromosomes, whereas a male has an X sex chromosome and a Y sex chromosome. Now, the thing is that what happens is that when you're producing eggs and sperm, is that you only have you have a pair in each of your regular, what you call somatic cells. But when you make a sex cells, you only get half of these chromosomes. So what happens? Well, if you get this half, you have an X chromosome. If you get this half, you get an X chromosome in the egg. Now, what if you divide this by half? Well, the thing is that these chromosomes should not split. You either get one of each pair of chromosomes. So what happens? What if you get of this pair? What if you get the X chromosome? Well, you have a sperm carrying an X chromosome. And what if you have a sperm containing the Y chromosome? You have a sperm containing the Y chromosome. Now, what do we have here? Well, females only produce a ova that have X chromosomes, whereas the male, depending on random chance, they can either produce a sperm containing an X chromosome or a Y chromosome. Now, what happens during fertilization? Well, again, you have to have pairs of chromosomes, right? So let's just talk about the sex chromosomes in this case. Well, here we have an X sperm fertilizing an ovum. And what's the new sex of the embryo? or I should say zygote to be more specific. Now you have an XX, so this will develop into a female. Now here we have a sperm that has a Y chromosome and an ovum. What happens if that Y chromosome containing sperm fertilizes this ovum? Well, now we have an XY individual, and now this embryo will end up as male, assuming everything goes normal.